So why is the price action of uranium miners so horrendously weak? The Sprott Uranium Miners ETF, year-to-date down 14% and aggravating a lot of uranium mining investors. And we've been covering and tracking exactly why this is happening. And it's the same reason that the Russell 2000 index is down 6% year to date. Small cap stocks, the real estate industry, growth technologies, anything early stage is suffering in this environment. And what is the common cause of it all? It's interest rates. Interest rates are the oxygen of the financial system. When they go up, you can't afford to buy a house. You can't afford to raise money. You can barely afford a car. Interest rates are insanely expensive now. They're double where they were a few years ago. And they've been that way since 2021, the last big bull market in risk assets. Look what uranium stocks did in 2021. The URNM went from $14 up to $47. That's not a coincidence. Look at what interest rates did in 2021. They went from 3%, this is the 10-year yield, down to 1%. That's a huge move. So they got cut in half. What have they done since then? The 10-year yields have gone from 1.44% up to 4.4%. That is a massive, nasty move. Look at where interest rates are now. The last time they were at this level was right before the great financial crisis in 2008. And when that happened, it gave the government cover to drop interest rates, because the risk when you lower interest rates is that you cause a massive rush of liquidity into the system. Everyone's raising money. There's a whole bunch of cash floating around. It causes inflation. So you really can't do that unless markets are weak to begin with. That's what we saw back here. Every single time there's a problem in our economy, the Federal Reserve would just lower those rates more and more and more until we hit almost breaking point during the pandemic in 2021. Since then, interest rates have rebounded. And we've been covering how the government almost needs a deflationary spiral meltdown in risk assets so that they can get the cover again to drop interest rates. It is the number one priority of the U.S. government. Here's Trump. This was as recent as March 24, 2025. This is their cabinet meeting.
I hope the Fed lowers interest rates, and then you're going to see interest rates coming down. Scott, you want to talk about interest rates, where you see it all going?
Yes, sir. So we are, under your direction, we're reprivatizing the economy, lower energy, deregulation, more private sector jobs that will naturally get interest rates down. Mortgage rates are down almost every week since January 20th. The energy costs are down about 15%. Crude oil's down about 15%. And as we keep that going, interest rates are going to keep declining. It'll be good for mortgages. It'll be good for credit card debt. It'll be great for auto loans.
That's great. I'd like to see the Fed lower interest rates. That's just my opinion, because things are coming down. We have inflation under control.
So no matter what anyone says, it's their primary focus. They need those rates to come down. And Trump's saying he wants the Fed to lower interest rates. He's been saying that for months. Why can't the Fed lower interest rates? Because at the end of the day, the market decides what interest rates should be. So if we had a massive global financial crisis and all assets crashed, bonds would be seen as a safe haven. And the Federal Reserve could come out and say, we're going to lower interest rates massively. The 10-year bond yield would go to 1%, and lots of money would go into buying that 10-year bond at 1%. So the market would be okay with 1%. Right now, the market's not okay with 1%. They're like, we need our over 4%. That's why I keep saying the U.S. government needs these assets to be weak. They need all assets to be super weak. They need a big drawdown. Again, what a lot of people are saying is that's going to give the Fed cover to lower interest rates. Because if they could lower interest rates like they did at any of these other points in history, they would. They can't right now. So that's kind of the really rough situation we're dealing with right now. For the first time in a long time, the Fed just can't control the interest rate. And so that's obviously causing anything tied to interest rates to stagnate. Again, try buying a house, try buying a car. It's almost unaffordable. Try financing a uranium mine. If the world can't borrow money, financing ends, growth ends. So we're kind of in this lukewarm no man's land right now. Definitely not ideal for early stage investors. Now we know what happens when it finally does come down. We see moves like this in the URNM ETF. Uranium stocks skyrocket. So it's literally a waiting game at this point. And nothing else is doing great either. It's not just uranium stocks. But what matters are the long-term fundamentals, because that's going to determine whether or not we get a massive life-changing move in these assets once the macro situation turns around. And that's why we stay on top of the long-term fundamentals of these assets. For starters, we have this from the White House. Immediate measures to increase American mineral production. This is March 20, 2025. Mineral means a critical mineral as defined by USC 1606, Section 30 USC 1606, as well as uranium, copper, potash, gold, and any other element. Our national and economic security are now acutely threatened by our reliance upon hostile foreign powers' mineral production. It is imperative for our national security that the United States take immediate action to facilitate domestic mineral production to the maximum possible extent. That means deregulating, it means providing financing, it means subsidizing assets to get valuable resources out of the ground. That's obviously massive for UUU and other domestic uranium players like UEC, like Denison, but UUU has rare earths in addition to uranium. So again, that's just a glimpse into what the government is doing. These are their priorities. They're doing everything they possibly can to support their local uranium miners. Probably because they realize how scarce and valuable these assets are. Treating the filthiest water on earth from the West Texas oil fields requires intense heat. Natura is building a wastewater treatment facility powered by their molten salt nuclear reactor to have a go at the 1 billion gallons of wastewater disposed of daily. This is just one use case of nuclear power. Uranium is so dense, it provides so much energy that we can start to clean the world up. And there's just obviously a million different use cases for low-cost energy. That's just one. World Bank may drop ban on funding nuclear power. This is massive. This is the type of money the World Bank doles out. $38 billion to Africa, $12 billion to East Asia, the Pacific, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? They're finally going to open that money up to fund nuclear power. What's that going to do for the demand of uranium? It's going to skyrocket it as more and more projects that feed off of uranium are developed.